Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Peter Christian. I'm here with the host of the show, Diane Beck, with Windermere Real Estate. Diane has been helping buyers and sellers with real estate in the Missoula area for over 20 years and is very active in the Missoula community. Along with their trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on NewsTalkKGVO.com, 98.3 FM and 1290 AM. All right, welcome everybody. It's Missoula Real Estate Today. I'm Peter Christian, thrilled to have in the studio with me once again my friend Nate Nunnally. How are you, sir?
Good, Peter. Good to be here.
Custom West Pest Control.
That's correct.
Now, forgive me because for years I knew you as a fireman. Right?
You did, yeah.
Yes.
I put in 20 years with the city of Missoula and was eligible for a pension and still young enough to go try something new in my career. Last thing in the world I thought it would be was pest control, but here I am 7 years later in that industry, and it's been a huge blessing. It's been a great line of work.
So for folks again who don't know you, and this is not your first time you've been on the show, but I wanted to just go back a little bit and tell me a little about Nate and where you came from and how you how you got to be a fireman, and then eventually we'll get it. We'll talk about pests.
Right.
We have a half an hour, so we got plenty of time.
Good deal. Well, all about Nate Nunnally. Married 36 years. Proud grandparents of 6 grandsons. That's right. All of them
6 grandsons?
That is correct.
Oh, man. Well, where's the water you're drinking, buddy?
Yeah, it must be from Polson, which is my hometown. We were raised on good water up there for sure. And, moved to Missoula in the early 80s and kind of stumbled into the fire service. Made a career out of that from a young age to a middle age. And that was a great career. But like I say, I was still young enough to go try some other things, and here I landed on this, being a small businessman, an entrepreneur, and in a service industry that has become a real blessing to be in. So,
well, now let me ask you, how did you decide? Did you have like a group of things and you ranked them, and or was it something that, hey, this looks really interesting, and oh my gosh, there's a niche here?
I got to tell you, for about 3 years after retirement, I tried a lot of different things. I went in on the private side doing fire sprinkler inspections. I really liked that job. I didn't like the travel. So I left that. I tried real estate investment. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, so I didn't do so well at that.
Right about 2008, right?
Yeah. And that was kind of a scary thing.
For
deciding
anybody
to retire from a career in the middle of a recession, or
right.
actually right at the beginning of a recession, and it posed its own challenges. But yeah, I took a couple years and really tried a lot of different things, and this opportunity came about because my pest guy, who was Dave Terry, ended up getting cancer, and he passed away in 2010. And so his widow was really kind of left, holding the ball on the business. And it was a great business. It was business that was 25 years old at that time.
So it was very well established.
It was, yeah, and a great clientele, and she needed some help, and she said, why don't you come and help me out? So I worked for her for about a year and a half, and things were starting to come back, and we're fighting our way through the recession and through the loss of Dave, and we wrote ourselves a little business plan and put our heads together with that, and became equal partners at the beginning of 2013, and 5 years later, it's running very well.
How does that work? When you sit down together, I know your family and probably her family were close anyway.
Yeah.
And you sit down together and you put your heads together and say, okay, what do we want to accomplish in this business? We got a 25-year track record, got a good reputation, but we got the future to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, it was quite honestly a lot about the numbers. How much money do we want to make? How much money do we think we can make running this company? And so we set a financial goal for ourselves. We're trying to build it into $1 million company. Right. We've missed our goal. We were going to try to have that done by the end of 5 years, which was a pretty lofty goal. Yeah. We took a company that was doing $150,000 a year, and we've quadrupled that. So we're pretty happy with that performance.
Very good.
And no signs of slowing down right now. So yeah, we're keeping doing that. But it's a nice blessing because it ensures a decent retirement for Karen and I. Coming out of it, we've got a business that employs 8 to 10 families, depending on what we've got going out there. We've diversified the company in a lot of ways. We have a wildlife division. This year, actually was able to find a guy that had not only a wildlife biology background, but a contractor's background. So he knows how to take your building, get the bats out, restructure the building so that it'll keep the bats out.
Take me through that, because there's a lot of people that live now in what they call the wildland urban interface.
That is so correct.
And so that's where fire insurance carriers fear to tread, because you're surrounded by forest land. And if you manage it right, then you can protect your house. But when it comes to those little critters, I mean, we're talking bats, and we're talking moles, we're talking, I'm sure, field mice.
Yeah.
The whole hantavirus thing. So tell me what you do is just in that particular sphere.
If somebody thinks they have an infiltration or an infestation by a squirrel, a skunk, a raccoon, birds, bats, whatever it may be, you give us a call, and we send our guy Andy out. He will assess the house and try to determine what's going on, and then he'll also determine a route of how to get them out of there and how to keep them out of there. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that can involve removing softening or fascia. Sometimes it actually even requires moving a portion of a roof. I've seen him pull tongue and groove wood paneled ceilings out of living spaces and have to attack it from underneath rather than up above the attic space. But he does phenomenal work. We have, quite frankly, a lot of these homes, these what I call, people's cabins in the sky. We have a lot of out-of-state ownership with very nice homes that they call their cabins that are, 3 times the size of the home that is my main home.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But, when you have that kind of investment in a piece of property in a beautiful, country like Montana, and you get an infestation, I mean, that can really take away from that. So it becomes a serious issue, and there are health risks. You mentioned hantavirus. That's definitely an issue that can be found in bat guano and even bird droppings, in mice droppings. The hantavirus in particular is a virus that's found in mouse droppings from deer mice. There's other issues, though, that come from bird and bat droppings. And so, it's not something you want to ignore. And sometimes that's what we find. We find people who are like, well, they're bats and they're natural and, they haven't really bothered us. But, when they start flying around
they
at
were
night,
here first.
Yeah.
Right?
If they're inside the house, and you're not sleeping well because of it, then that's a serious issue in itself.
If you have a bat on your pillow, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. And there's a risk. They are vectors of rabies, and so you have to be concerned with that. Little piece of advice: if you ever do experience a bat, if you think you may have been exposed or bitten by any chance, you do need to recover that bat. The only way they can determine that is by analyzing the bat. And the way to recover that, first and foremost, is to call an expert to come and help you.
Right.
We do, try to provide emergency response when we have to, and we've had to do that on occasion. You've got to go through the right processes. But anyhow, having that variation on our business has been a significant help to both homeowners and business owners alike.
Well, I will tell you just one interesting anecdote, and I wish I knew that you guys did critter reduction, because several months ago, right in the middle of the summer, my wife and I were sitting out on the back deck, and you've been to our house,
yes,
right?
I have.
So we're kind of back up against a hillside, kind of tucked away from a lot of other people, and so we're just sitting there chatting, and all of a sudden, the biggest, fattest skunk I have ever seen came to our back gate, right?
Oh, wow.
And this guy's this wide. He's huge. I mean, he's big. He managed to squeeze through the gap in our gate.
Yeah.
And he starts ambling down, just obviously looking for bugs or whatever, And I, what do I do? What do I do? I mean, he's in my yard now. I don't want to get him mad. What do I do?
Right.
And so and we didn't have a dog. So thank heavens, because dog probably would have gotten sprayed.
Yes.
So I said, the only thing I could think of, let's just go in the house and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because if we let him alone, maybe he'll just lose interest and leave.
Yeah.
So he went all around our yard, the entire perimeter of the fence, looking for bugs, got back to the gate, and squeezed out again.
Yeah. He was just looking for food.
But we also have a shed that has an open underneath the floor.
Yeah.
And somebody said, hey, they may be looking for a den to have their pups or whatever they call them.
In the spring, love is in the air, and all animals are
skunklings or whatever they call them. Yeah. So, did I do the right thing or what?
Yeah, you really did. Yeah, observe the animal and let them, do what they do. If we're going to live in those interface areas, we're impinging on their territory. We still need to stand our ground. And if he does establish himself under your deck or under your shed, then we may have to take action. But sometimes the best thing to do is, just let them be and go on about their thing. And they're just looking for food is all, and hopefully have a den elsewhere. But
because I'd lived back there for almost 30 years, and I'd never, ever seen a skunk back there.
Oh,
so anyway, it was. So I'm glad you talked about that, because now I know who to call if he comes back. So
and we do, and I personally don't like dealing with skunks, but our guy Andy, he smells like skunk a lot of the time. A lot of times, our office staff won't even let him in the door because he stinks.
Oh, poor guy.
And he doesn't realize he's nose blind, I think.
Is he really? Well, good for him. That's a positive. So let's talk about some of the other, ordinary stuff. Things like ants, and we don't really have cockroaches in Montana.
We don't. If we have cockroaches, it's because somebody brought them here from the big city or down south somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, where do you start when you come into a person's house and they say, "We've got some spiders" or whatever? We saw a great big spider the other day. So what do you do? Do you look for all different kinds of vermin all around the house, or are you looking for one specific thing?
Well, we're always going to put an emphasis on what the main issue is. If it's spiders, then we'll definitely take measures to emphasize our treatment towards the spiders. If it's ants, likewise, we're going to use, sometimes it requires different products. But by and large, where folks are just into the preventative, long-term pest control, and for normal residences, that can be seasonal. What we always tell people is that as far as frequency goes, it's really based on what your personal experience is. I will say that our most successful clients get it done monthly, at least through the summer season, and we're happy to do that, and it is perfectly safe to do that.
So I know that there are lawn treatment services that say, hey, we'll do 4 applications for X amount of dollars, and then you just set it up and forget about it. And they just come to. Is it the same deal with you guys?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we have folks that do monthly or every other month. Some people do quarterly. Some people only do twice a year. Really depends on what their problem is, what the issues are, what they get impinged by. The crazy thing is I never realized this until I was in this business, that we still get insect calls in December, January, and February.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing is
you're indoors, right?
You are. And those insects, just like us, are looking to get out of the cold and get where it's safe.
It's like the Bahamas for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've provided a nice shelter for them and a place for them to overwinter.
Sure.
So, yeah, being able to treat that. Yeah, when we come in to do, we have a general insect preventative treatment that can be objective towards what your particular issue is as well. Use products that are broad spectrum. Some of the first questions we get asked, of course, is this safe for my children and my pets? And those are great questions, and we have no problem answering that. We're still using pesticides. There are green measures out there that aren't pesticide chemicals per se, but they still are pesticides, and we'll address that based on what your personal preferences are. But the bottom line is we use a pesticide because that's what works. What we found is our clients just objectively want they don't want spiders in their home. They want the problem solved, and so we come in with products that are least toxic. We're always going to emphasize least toxic. We're not going to go in and spray willy-nilly. Right. We're very direct and succinct in how we make that application. And that's part of how we maintain not just our licensing, but also our professionalism, and still be, successful in helping you with your pest problems.
So when it comes to spiders, how many varieties are there? And have you come up against some ones that you didn't even recognize?
Almost every year, I'll bet, I run into another insect in Montana that I didn't know we had. Right. And the really cool thing is we actually have a staff entomologist, and
wow.
And we call her the bug nerd, very affectionately. But she's incredible, and you bring in a specimen for her, and her eyes light up, and she gets them under the microscope, and will help us identify what it is. And,
does she put them on a piece of paper and stick a pin in them, or what?
Yeah, no. If you're collecting them for us, you need to collect them, before you've stomped on them with your foot. They can be a little hard to identify at that point.
It's hard to put back together, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But if you can find the insect dead, or in some way render it, where it's not moving, put it in a plastic baggie or stick it to a piece of tape or something like that, where we can look at it. But sometimes she needs to look at the underside as well as the top side of the insect to identify what it is. But that it does help us identify what we're dealing with and be more objective towards what our treatment's going to be to help you solve the problem.
So is this a dangerous job? I mean, I realize sometimes there could be bees, there can be I'm sure black widow spiders, poisonous things, and these are things that you guys are trained to recognize.
That's true, yeah. So a part of our training is always going to involve insectology. We need to understand what it is we're dealing with, and of course, with that, you want to understand what the dangers are. So the two biggest concerns we have spider-wise, and I probably key on that more because, oddly enough, in this business, I guess I have arachnophobia. If I hate one thing in this world, it's spiders.
Creepy.
They have their place, and that's all great. I just don't want them in my house or on me.
Sure.
But black widows can have a bad bite to them. They actually release a neurotoxin, so it can make you very sick. And then we have the hobo spiders, of course, which a lot of people are just completely freaked out by because it's a fairly significantly sized spider. It can have a body length that's up to 3/4 of an inch, and with his legs spread out would cover a silver dollar pretty easily. And they're just big and mean, nasty looking things. And they do have a bite that can be influential on your skin. They release a toxin in your skin that can lead to necrosis. There's a lot of debate out there as to whether or not they actually create the necrosis or not, but I think at the very least what they do is they jeopardize your wound site, and then you tend to try to dress it or deal with it, and you end up with an infection. So that's where
if you treat it just like a regular cut or a scrape, it's not going to take care of it, right?
Well, it may or may not. It can totally depend on the severity of the bite, I guess, is the way to describe it, because I've seen all phases. But generally, if you've got a bite and it's turning red and you're seeing pustules, you need to go see a doctor. I mean, don't self-treat that, because sometimes there are some things that a doctor needs to do. Generally, with a hobo spider bite, it's going to be antibiotics, because it's just the biggest risk there is infection.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyhow, those are the two bad ones. As far as our technicians go and the risks of the job, bee stings, or actually, quite frankly, wasp stings are the biggest concern. And most all of us in the field have experienced that at one point or another. I actually went my first 4 straight years without a sting, and then I got it twice in one day.
Wow.
So they were making up for lost time, I guess. Yeah. But we've also learned, too, with our processes how to be safer. And the other thing, too, is a great thing about this industry, especially even in the 7 years I've been at it, is the innovation in products that they've come out with that are just so succinct and so effective. And again, on that basis of least toxic, we're exposing ourselves to so little pesticides when we're doing the treatment. And that makes it nice in being able to use the industry standards out there for what gets the job done. So with the wasp, I mean, they were kind of the bane of our existence. We didn't have a lot of success using a lot of different products that would brag success. And then oddly enough, a product that we use for treating carpenter ants, which is actually a termiticide. That's what it was developed for, but it's developed to affect
for like termites, right?
Wood destroying insects. And what our big problem in Montana with wood destroyers is generally going to be carpenter ants. So if you live out in the woods, up in the hills, and you have a log home, you can be very susceptible to that. So anyhow, this product came out with a supplemental listing for wasp, and we started using that. I think we just finished our 4th season, and we have tremendous success with it.
What does it do?
You know what it does? See, insects like wasp and ants and termites are social insects. So it takes very little application at the molecular level to get it in their landing sites or the places that they move around, and they carry it into their nest. So then you get to the stem or the root of the problem, so to speak. They share it with all their buddies in the nest. It kills the nest off, and then you don't have a problem anymore.
So what's the difference? And again, I'm showing my rank ignorance here, but that's my job. So
okay.
What's the difference between a wasp and a hornet?
Just the way they're built and the way they operate. They're both from the class of or species of Vespidae. They're both Vespids, where a bee is not.
Okay.
So we use bees as a general terminology. I do want to point out the fact that we want to be very careful about how we handle our products and use them around pollinators, which can be Vespids or bees. So we have to be very careful, like not treating flowering or blossoming plants. But the difference between a wasp and a hornet is, one sting can be worse than the other. That's the biggest difference that we're concerned about.
How about
the way they build their nests are different?
How about yellow jackets?
Okay, now yellow jackets are the interesting about yellow jackets is they're really what's also known as a ground nester or a ground wasp. So they will have a tendency to want to build their nest inside of a pocket or a void. So when we find yellow jackets on houses, you're not seeing their nest, but what you're seeing is an entry point where they're crawling in under the siding or under your concrete stairs sometimes, or in the roots of a bush or vegetation like that. That's the difference with them. The little round nest that you see up under your eaves, that's actually a paper wasp, and they're a different breed, different species. A paper wasp tends to be a lot more docile of an insect. They're not near as big of a threat as a yellow jacket. Yellow jackets are kind of aggressive. You get too near their nest, boy, they'll come out and get you. Where hornets, you'll see the big ball that's hanging, usually in a tree. Sometimes you'll find it hanging off.
Sometimes they're enormous.
Yeah, they'll get larger than a basketball.
I will never forget. We were playing Falf up in Patty Canyon area,
right?
And so we're tossing the frisbee around, and we get about 25 feet from this tree. And I hear what sounds like a small aircraft, like there's a plane overhead. And I said, "There's nothing up there." So I walked up, and up in this tree was the biggest hornet's nest I've ever. It must have been, it was huge. It must have been there for a long time, and it was enormous. And so we just very carefully went around it. Because it was making all sorts of noise.
Yeah, and really the size is just simply influenced by the size of the colony. How prolific they are in reproducing themselves and what they've got for feeding.
So when you come upon something like that, and somebody says, "Hey, Nate Nunnally from Custom West Pest Control, I've got an enormous wasp's nest or hornet's," would it be a wasp or a hornet?
It would be a hornet.
A hornet's nest in my tree. What do you do? So take us through the play-by-play here, because this is kind of exciting.
Well, it's kind of interesting because sometimes the simplest thing to do is just take a good spray nozzle on the end of your hose and blow the nest apart, and it will dislocate them, and they're going to move on. And if you destroy their queen, then their only option is to go find a different place to live. So it can be that simple.
Some people take a blowtorch and set them on fire.
Gosh. Yeah, and I've seen the videos. Yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that. Both as a retired firefighter and a pest control guy, don't use fire to get rid of your insect problems. But we come in and we have a process for treating that. We have some good products that allow us to spray the nest and then break it down and remove it from the tree. And generally, we're going to do that when it's an influence where it's too close to the house. It's bothering somebody, on their back deck or anything like that. So we have processes for getting rid of them.
So is there a time when you would tell somebody, you know what? This particular nest is not bothering anybody. I realize it's maybe a little bit close to your house, but it's not bothering anybody. Maybe you should just think about leaving it alone. Have you ever done that, or you do what people ask you to do?
Yeah. No, but I would do that. I can't think of a time where I've ever done that, because generally the only time we get called is when they're too close to the house. They've been, we'll find them in a lower hanging branch on a tree or in a bush. And even the dogs are getting stung by them just by passing by the nest. And certainly, if children or people are getting too close to the nest. So that's when we're going to get rid of them. The ones that are far enough away that aren't bothering anybody, we generally never hear about.
So this time of year, as we're in deep fall now, and we're going to be in winter here pretty quick. Yep. So when people call you in the winter, what are they usually calling about?
Mice. Right. It's all about the mice. So we just we kind of switch modes, and I don't know. It kind of seems to me like, as this company, either by our growth or either by just the way things are evolving, we seem to have a lot of mice issues, and the impingement is pretty incredible. And what happens is, folks will get a mouse or two in their house and they don't realize it, and then that mouse, those two mice have a family. and then all of a sudden they've got a dozen or 20 mice running around their house.
Right.
And that becomes an issue.
They're very friendly.
They are. Boy, they will take over if you don't deal with it. So yeah, mice are definitely they're trying to push in and find harborage in winter stores, and if they can get into your house and set themselves up, and they've got access to your pantry or the dog food dish, that's the two big things.
All right.
They'll make themselves right at home.
So what kind of things can do you do when you're called and I've got a mouse in my house? What do you do?
Well, we're going to trap them out first and foremost. And sometimes that requires setting 20 or 30 traps. It just depends on how many mice we think we're dealing with. First and foremost, what you want to do is seal your home up. You want to make sure that your door seals are in place, that your thresholds are in good condition. If you're leaving the garage door open for the dogs to get in and out during the winter, not the best idea. Install a dog door.
Right.
That's kind of the amazing thing is we'll hear from people who say, I've lived in this house for 30 years. I've never had a mouse problem, and now all of a sudden I've got this. And you'll look and inspect the home, the foundation, and all the possible penetrations or entry points, and you can't find anything. And they just simply will walk in through an open door. They're little opportunists, and I think we tend to see that more often than not. It's an amazing thing. You block the door open for 5 minutes to run the groceries in from the car, and all of a sudden a mated pair moves in in the middle of winter. 2-3 months later, they've had their little brood, and you've got a whole bunch of little mice running around your house.
Wow. All right. So believe it or not, we've been going on for almost 26 minutes.
That goes fast.
And we only have about 4 minutes left. So give us some really the most important tips from Nate Nunnally from Custom West Pest Control as we're heading into winter now. What kind of things should we look for? How can we protect our homes? Things like that.
Seal your home. That's the most important thing. Make sure your screens are in good condition. Make sure that door stripping, weather stripping and stuff is in good shape. A lot of time we'll find infiltration through pipe penetrations for your air conditioning units or your heating units, electrical, things like that. Make sure those holes are sealed up tight, and they generally need to be sealed with something that a mouse can't chew through. So spray foam's not going to work.
Okay. You
may need to use a caulking. There are specialized caulks actually for preventative pest control. Bottom line is if you have a persistent problem that you can't take care of, well, that's why we're here, is to help you out with that.
Sure. Now I went into the store the other day and tried to buy some decon, and the guy said, the FDA is saying we can't sell the little pop-up boxes anymore. Is that right? Or
that's interesting. Now, I've been hearing for several years that decon's kind of on its way out.
Right.
They've overused it, and mice have actually built up a resistance to it.
Lovely.
The active ingredient is a product called Warfarin that people will take actually as a blood thinner. It's used as a human drug for certain reasons, and that can be an issue. Decon is really not the best choice. Quite frankly, the best choice is to always trap. You want to physically remove that body. Mm-hmm. When you're using poisons, then the mice will eat it, and they can go die on your wall or under your cabinetry, and then you've got a smell issue.
Right.
It's just not sanitary. So the best thing to do is trap them out.
And for people who are a little bit squeezy or whatever, and they trap a mouse and it's still maybe wiggling a little bit or whatever. I mean,
the humane thing to do is to drown it from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Okay.
Yeah, but that's why you want to use snap traps, something that's a quick kill.
Mm-hmm.
We always prefer to use snap traps.
So, like, I'll call you at 3 a.m. Nate!
yeah, we won't come and drown it.
I've got a mouse in my
I guess we
room.
will, but we might charge a lot in the middle of the night.
Okay, so I always like to ask people what they enjoy most about what they do.
The relationships we build with our clients that was the most fascinating thing to me. A lot of our folks, I see on a monthly basis, and I ran routes when I first started this job. I had routes down the Bitterroot. I had routes all over the town. I ran routes to Kalispell, to Butte, wherever, and just getting to know people, and they get to know you a little bit, and you see them once a month, and it's, hey, how are you? And sometimes you have time to sit down and have a cup of coffee. That's the coolest part about it. Solving their pest problems.
So how do we contact Nate Nunnally and your staff at Custom West Pest Control?
Custom West Pest Control. You can look us up on the internet at www.missoulapest.com.
Missoula Pest, okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to find us and see what we're about.
And about how long does it take to get an appointment and get somebody over there?
Generally, this time of year, we're there within 24 to 48 hours.
Really?
In the summer, 48 hours to, maybe 3 days.
So the next time my skunk comes to visit, I'll call you.
Call us, yeah. Call right away. We'll come and deal with it.
Send your stinky guy over.
Yeah.
Right? Nate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Pete.
My best to you and your family.
Thank you.
And all your
Yours
six,
as well.
6 grandsons?
Yes.
Way to go. All right. That's going to do it for Missoula Real Estate today. I'm Peter Christian. Join us next week. Thanks for tuning into Missoula Real Estate today. We hope you found the information over the last 30 minutes to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for future Missoula Real Estate Today programs, or any questions about buying or selling real estate, please email Diane. Here's the address. It's dianebeck@realtor.com. That's dianebeck@realtor.com. We'll see you next week on News Talk KGBO.com, 98.3 FM and 1290 AM.